is a first down. Pirates.
You can paint this one purple. What an incredible win by the ECU Pirates.
And right now on Blackbeard's Alley, very excited to be joined by the play-by-play voice of the Campbell Camels to preview this Saturday's 6 p.m. matchup at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. And welcome in Chris Hemeyer. Chris, we appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you, Bubba. We've been doing this for a while now, man. It seems like ever since ECU and Campbell got together. So thanks for giving me a call.
Yeah, always, appreciate your time and, look forward to talking about the Pirates and Camels, be it football, basketball, or baseball. We've talked all three down through the years, but in this case, first time these two programs have met since back in 2022. That was a 49-10 ECU victory at, of course, Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. This one, the Pirates' home opener. The Camels are also 0-1, coming off a loss up at Rhode Island against number 9 URI and the Rams. So what can you tell us about that opener? And then we'll dive into some of the specific, personnel.
Yeah, absolutely, Bubba. Well, Rhode Island is a CAA football-only member. They were co-champions of the league last year and basically returned everybody. They have one of the most experienced and oldest offensive line in all of FCS. They returned their quarterback. They returned their star defensive lineman. They returned their star receiver. They are in the top 10 in the country for a reason and picked to win the league again. Campbell went toe-to-toe with them for about 3.5 quarters. Campbell led at the end of the first quarter and held that lead all the way into the fourth quarter. And then the old offensive line and the very experienced quarterback and the very experienced team took over, and they got a couple of touchdowns late. But Rhode Island behind that line, Campbell's defense did really well. The rushing attack for Rhode Island gained just 109 yards. And then on the offensive side, we saw a lot of good things from Campbell. Now, look, this is a team that has 56 newcomers this year. So Campbell had a really solid running game. Rocky Mount product, Randall King, a Northern Nash guy who's going to be so excited to play in Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. He was the leading receiver for Campbell, had 5 catches. And then a Duke transfer by the name of Spencer Jones, big body, 6'3", 6'4". He had 5 catches as well. So a lot of really good things for Campbell in a game where we really didn't know what we were going to see too much of. And the fact that they could hang with the top 10 team in the country that's going to be one of the best teams in the CAA and won a FCS playoff game last year, I think that's a really, really good sign for Campbell.
Yeah, no doubt. In second year of Braxton Harris's tenure there in Bowie's Creek, and with that being the case, he brought in a signal caller that had experience down at McNeese State, or as we were joking off air before we started recording, McNeese, down in Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana to be exact, and a very proud tradition-rich program down through the years are the Cowboys. And he made that decision to enter the portal and wound up in Bowie's Creek, and has an awesome name, Camden Six Killer. Tell us about Camden.
Yeah, he won what was a pretty tight QB battle this camp. He came in the spring, has the great name, Six Killer, of course, wears number 6. And Braxton Harris actually coached against him when he was a freshman. And what he told his coaches back when he was an assistant in Texas, he said, man, this is a freshman that didn't have a lot around him and was a winner. I can't wait to see what this guy is when he's an upperclassman. Well, the guy's an upperclassman now. He came to Campbell, and what is really interesting is Campbell had a pretty good returning quarterback by the name of Mike Chandler II. This was a guy that got thrust into the quarterback role after a tough battle in camp last year, ended up being the second quarterback, but got to start the last 4 games of the season. He's a dual threat guy, Mike Chandler, a run throw guy. And so Campbell thinks that they have two really, really good quarterbacks. And so what happened, and we saw it in the game against Rhode Island, about 40 snaps. Mike Chandler II is there. They had him run some sweeps. They had him line up as receiver and run some routes. They also had him take some direct snaps, and he had a touchdown as he basically, once they got inside the 20, he was out of the Wildcat. And not like your normal Wildcat guy who's just going to run. He also can throw because he's a quarterback as well. So I think that's going to be a really good thing about Campbell this year is they're going to be a little tough to scout, and you're going to have to be on it to see if number 6 or number 1 is there behind center. You mentioned Six Killer transferring from McNeese State. Second year for Campbell head coach Braxton Harris. He brought in 56 newcomers. He got the job late, if you remember, 2 years ago after Mike Minner resigned. He didn't resign until December. He got put in place. Braxton Harris did in January. So he had a lot of guys that he inherited that probably if he had a little bit more time, had some more time in the portal, he wouldn't have stuck with. But he needed to fill out a roster. So even though they had a decent year last year, they beat the top 25 team in the country in Western Carolina on the road. It just wasn't a team that was built in his image. It wasn't a team that was totally bought in. So with 56 newcomers, he really feels that he has the team around him for the first time. And he went out and got some FBS guys, which you do. But I think like the McNeese State transfer and their quarterback Six Killer and many others on this roster, it's a lot of guys that played some FCS ball and had a lot of FCS starts and snaps. And I think that's gonna go a long way to make this team pretty experienced pretty early.
Yeah, Six Killer's numbers against the Rams, 17 out of 33, just shy of 150 yards. And he also carried the ball 8 times. And taking a look at that ground attack, I see Campbell ran it 32 times against Rhode Island, and 24 of those, were by, running backs, I guess, or perhaps maybe some receivers got involved. But those carries were pretty spread out. Tell us about the running back room.
Yeah, it's the deepest room in the entire facility right now. What you didn't see, who hopefully will be back, if not this game, will be back when Campbell opens up 3 home games starting on the 13th against Furman. But Mark Biggins, who's a transfer that came in last year, big guy, strong guy, can run a straight line and run you over. He was the starter last year, didn't go last week. And then what's really cool is a guy named J.J. Cowan. He's a guy that was from Triton High School, a local guy that was a walk-on. Because the running back room was injured so much, he was thrust into the role, started a couple games, but did enough to earn a scholarship. And they supplemented that room with a couple of transfers, including a Georgetown transfer in Naeem Courtney. So they feel that they have a really good room back there and an offensive line that has really gelled together. They pretty much returned their entire offensive line, and then they got a couple of transfers, including one from ECU, Cam Durant, who is a left guard. He was a scholarship guy. He was playing for ECU. He decided to transfer, so that has really made a pretty good room even better. And they held up just one sack the entire night on Six Killer, and he only was really pressured at the end of the game when you knew Campbell was going to go back and throw the ball.
Yeah, you mentioned Cam Durant. He's one of 3 guys on that Campbell roster, if I'm not mistaken, that have ECU ties. 2 that had been in the program and the 1 that had been committed to the Pirates. Blake Harrell referenced that young man in Monday's weekly press conference, just saying that he was committed to ECU as a corner and opted to play wide out. So that was the reason for the switch to the Campbell's program, excuse me.
Yeah, definitely. There's there's so much between these two schools. Logan Wright, who is another backup nose tackle, is another ECU transfer. And it was interesting because I was talking to somebody. Everybody asks, we know up at the FBS level, the Group of 5 level, the Power 4 level, kind of how the transfer portal is affecting, and they wonder how it affects things down here. And look, Campbell's star receiver, one of the best receivers in the nation at FCS level, an All-American, a guy by the name of Sincere Brown. He is claiming that he's getting $500,000 to go play at Colorado for Deion. That's pretty awesome. But what happens the other way is Campbell and a lot of other FCS programs are getting some transfers down. And where Campbell is located, for a long time being located in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, wasn't the best thing because it sounds like it's out in the middle of nowhere. Right now, we know we're basically a Raleigh suburb by the way that town is growing. But when it comes to the transfer portal, we're getting guys in the portal era from Duke, from NC State, from ECU, from UNC. We are getting guys who look, they aren't getting the reps that they need up at these big schools. They love the area. They got friends in the area. They probably got a girlfriend in the area. So they will transfer down to Campbell knowing that, look, if you make some hay at Campbell, which is a really good program with a really good coach who plays some really big teams, that you can get a chance to go back up to the FBS. We're not selling that. We want you to come to Campbell, whether it's out of high school or for a transfer. And Coach Harris is very adamant by saying, hey, we want you in this program and we want you all in. But look, we've had some guys that have gone on to play professionally. Julian Hill was a second-team all-conference quarterback from Fayetteville. He came here, spent 5 years with Campbell, and he is in his third year with the Miami Dolphins. He's played 31 NFL games. He's a blocking tight end for them. We had a couple of other guys, linemen, and Mike Edwards and Tyler McClellan. One transferred in, one was here for 5 years that were in an NFL camp this year. So you can come here to Campbell, maybe get a chance to get some money and bounce back, or you can stay and have a chance to play in the pros. So the good thing is the fact that, as you mentioned, some ECU guys that have come here and vice versa. It's a pretty good thing where Campbell is positioned because there are a lot of FBS programs around, as you know.
Shifting over and taking a look at things defensively, the names, just looking through the numbers against Rhode Island, is it Liverman, Pace, and Villanueva? They're ones that appeared to have a very good game against the Rams.
Yeah, Logan Liverman, JoJo Pace, two guys that have been in this program for a while, and they're leading things from the secondary and from the linebacker position. And then Villanueva, a big pickup from UConn. Again, another one of those guys, maybe not at a P4, but a guy that has played a whole lot of football and actually began his collegiate career at a P4. At Illinois. It's guys with talent like that he has brought in, and they did a really good job again against, like I told you, Bubba, this is one of the oldest offensive lines and oldest in experience, oldest in age in all of FCS, and Campbell held their own against the running game. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for a couple of deep shots that they took to one of the best wide receivers in the CAA, a guy who is a preseason All-American. Campbell probably would have won that game. That's how good their defense was. And again, this is against a top 10 team in the country. So even though it might not have looked at it when you looked at the total numbers, the defense is there and the defense is pretty good. Now, make no mistake about it. It's a tough effort against an FBS team, especially the caliber of ECU. So Campbell will have their hands full. You might not see the defensive prowess that we saw against Rhode Island, but it's a good test. It's a fun test. We already mentioned, some of the local guys that we have that grew up being Pirates fans, some of the guys that were Pirates that have come to us, and it's big time for our fans. One person said to me that in 2022, when Campbell ran out onto that field against East Carolina, that's when Campbell really has a football team. It was just the second time that Campbell had played a FBS in-state opponent, and the first time was against Wake Forest in COVID, and we had a lot of our fans there, and it meant a lot. This is just a program that's in its 18th year. Only its 8th year as a scholarship program in FCS. So games like this are a lot of fun and really big to not only Campbell student athletes, but the Campbell faithful as well.
Yeah, no doubt. On that game 3 years ago that you referenced, it was one in which the Camels jumped out on the Pirates early, and it was back and forth. Keaton Mitchell making some plays for ECU, and the Camels, really had it competitive there mid to late second quarter, and then ECU's depth kind of took advantage um, of things, and really poured it on in the second half. But definitely cannot take anything for granted. That goes without saying. And as you take a look at the special teams for the Camels, I noticed Alex Crabb 2 for 2 with the long of 40 yards as a place kicker against URI, and then Aiden Bond did pretty well as the punter.
Yeah, it was great, and these are all unproven guys. Alex Crabb was in the program, but buried on the depth chart last year. We even have a redshirt freshman non-scholarship long snapper. They really had to retool their entire special teams, and like I said, the special teams was special. Campbell forced 3 URI turnovers in the first half, and one of those, because that punt that you mentioned from Bondi was one of those NFL type high hang time, a lot of time to think about it, really deep, and it was muffed by the punter. The two made field goals, and especially the one from 40 yards are going to be a big weapon. Especially in games like this, for FCS teams to hang in when they get a chance, and when they get into the above 40, they need to cash in those points. And also, too, look, if you're an FCS team, you're probably going to punt a lot. Your special teams is going to have to be good. You don't want to allow a blocked punt, and you want to try to bury a very capable ECU offense as deep as you can. So Campbell will have their hands full, but their special teams definitely special. It's interesting what you said about the last game. Campbell, was leading 10-7 after the first quarter, hung with them in the second quarter, and then in the second half it got away from it. Look at all of the FCS versus FBS games in the country, and you might see a lot of that. Elon hung with Duke in the first half of the game last weekend. I had a very experienced coach tell me one time, you watch what happens FCS versus FBS in the second half, because here's the reason, and it's something you don't think about, but very true. He's like, look, if I'm an FCS head coach, I might have one GA that's looking at tape at halftime, trying to diagnose what the other team is doing and everything like that. A team like ECU, an FBS team, they have 5 full-time coaches more than the FCS team does have, and they probably got 20 GAs that are breaking down game film as it happens during the game. So look, at the start of the third quarter, they know what your tendencies are. They know what formations mean. They know who the players are. They have diagnosed what you have done in real time in game, and they're going to put out the anecdote there to try to beat you. I will say that, and then I'll say too that Campbell hung with Georgia Southern and missed by about 2 feet a 2-point conversion that would have given them a win against an FBS team. You see it every year. FCS teams beat about 4 or 5. FCS teams beat about 4 or 5 FBS teams, and sometimes, of course, you have the really big ones when a P4 goes down. But it's why you play the game, right? And it's why everything's so fun. Campbell is not supposed to win this game, but we're going to play it and see what happens.
Yeah, that's an excellent point regarding not only the depth on the field, but the depth on the sideline and in the press box with the coaching staff and those resources and what that allows you to do. But in that opener, the Pirates and the Camels were both heavily penalized. ECU had 10 penalties for not too far shy of 100 yards, and then the Camels 11 penalties for 98 yards. ECU 6 out of 16 on third down against the Wolfpack, and that was really distorted because of the numbers early. And I say distorted, but that's when a lot of those 10 failed conversions happened in the first half. And then the Camels were 3 out of 15 against the Rams. So as you look at this matchup, if Campbell, is going to make this a competitive game and make Pirate fans sweat, what's going to have to happen?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the big thing. Campbell, with, again, you have a quarterback in Cam Six Killer that did win the job coming out of camp, but he played his first game as a Campbell Camel, and he played it on the road. And at times it looked like that. Again, being rushed a little bit on third down. The third down conversions, first and foremost, those have to be better because Campbell has to stay on the field, especially with the depth that ECU has on offense, and that's the biggest thing. He also too a little tentative to throw downfield. Not a lot of completions on over 10 yards, and you're going to have to take some shots to open up that Pirate defense and to try to get a little bit off there. So again, we saw a lot of really good things from Cam. Playing a team like ECU in their home opener that is going to throw everything out to be 1-1. It's going to be a lot, obviously, but it's but it's something that have to get better on third down.
As always, thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon, Chris. Some excellent insight into this Campbell team as the Pirates and Camels will square off at 6 o'clock on Saturday night at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium. But have an excellent call. Best of luck this season and safe travels as you make that short commute on Saturday.
Thanks, Bubba. So great to be on, and again, we'll be looking forward to going up to Greenville and seeing some old friends. So hopefully we'll give you a good one.
There you have our conversation with Chris Hemeyer, the longtime play-by-play voice of the Campbell Camels. That will about do it for episode 3 of Blackbeard's Alley. However, I wanted to quickly mention 4 things that I'll be keeping a close watch on in this matchup on Saturday between East Carolina and Campbell. After East Carolina got off to a very slow start against NC State, a start that included the Pirates going 3 and out on each of their first 4 possessions and seeing NC State build a 17-0 lead early in the second quarter. How will ECU start against Campbell? Will the Pirates come out guns a-blazing offensively and really be able to establish a running game after running for just 30 yards against NC State? Will they be able to run for 175 plus against the Camels? Will they be able to force 2+ turnovers? And then lastly, will the Pirates be able to significantly reduce their penalties against Campbell? ECU committed 10 penalties for nearly 100 yards against NC State. I would love to see that cut in half, no more than 4 or 5 penalties for less than 50 yards, and hopefully even better than that on Saturday against the Camels. But that will do it for this edition of Blackbeard's Alley. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe. On X, we can be found at Blackbeard Alley. On Instagram at Blackbeard's Alley. You can listen to the show via Spotify. And then on YouTube, you can find us by simply searching Blackbeard's Alley, a pirate football podcast. Be sure to ring that notification bell so you're alerted on your device anytime we go live or upload new content. But until next time, we appreciate your support. And as always, go Pirates.